So this is the XRIFFz articulator. I have system here where I've split guitar and synth as well as spectral effects processors to create a new kind of lead creation tool, basically. And so I have segmented up as much as possible, but there's quite a bit of stuff going on here. And so anyways, the key parts of this are the source selectors, the main sort of attack release morpher. We have some round robin for the notes so that it creates an artificial sort of noise seed effect so that it sounds like each pluck or each striking of the note is slightly different. You can layer these tones, and you can also have a delayed start to all of these so that they will sound different at different times depending on how you set this. Okay, so then you can also dub synth, and I have some choices here for different synth styles that fit that particular lead tone and some other atmospheric stuff. I added some bird sounds, no, not really, that's a bird outside my house. I added some guitar noise effect and some wind noise generation effect to be able to dial in as much as you want of that for even more sort of realism and character for tone in a weird way. Okay, so then we come to the sort of effects processing system that's the big enchilada of this thing. And the first thing we encounter is the XRIFFz sort of rack, I call it. And essentially, anytime you see these first knobs, this is going to enable all of these plugins. So when you see something like this or like this, you know, that's going to enable that section. And so in this case, to enable XRIFFz, we would do that, and then we have various choices. And it's sort of a spectral sound that's created from a transforming DSP processor. And so that's the first round. The second round is you have a spectral groove system, which was created with a wavetable synthesizer, so I called it Wave Scan. And you have a couple different tempo tricks for that and a couple different ways to manipulate that. Basically, you just dial in where the noise is going to essentially land on the wavetable, because I decided to go with a big wavetable of 256 waves. So whenever this goes up or down, you're jumping around 256 different wavetables. So in each of these columns, that's what creates this sort of morphing effect that's also rhythmic. Very powerful technique. Okay, and I added a wah because wah is really critical for a lot of different kinds of lead sounds. And the wahs, they generally need to take over the sound, so I didn't really add a dry wet for that. But you can sort of dial up or dial back on resonance and drive and things like that to create more of a less wet signal. Okay, so then the next thing is you have the booster, and the booster works with the wah, and it also works by itself. Okay, then you have the quick articulator. Now this is something that's mainly the main idea behind a lot of the things I'm doing now. And the point is to get to articulations. And so I didn't go too crazy with this, but really, so the way to think about articulation is you have different kinds of articulations that are sort of possible on a lot of different kinds of instruments. But then you have the DSP-based articulations, which are sort of these spectralized ideas of articulation that occur through digital signal processing and sound manipulation. So the main ones I've included are a solo, a double stop, a little bit of vibrato, and a hammer-on effect, and then a way to toggle the speed of the hammer-on. And hammer-on is just when you're basically on a guitar usually, and you strike one note and go up really quickly, and in this case it's a fifth. And again, I didn't want to go too crazy because this is a giant system already, but really you could have a fifth and a fourth and a sixth. And the other thing is that the solo has the portamento capability, so you have a way to glide between the notes. And this is a thing that's occurring with the additive quality of DSP. So you can really go crazy with synthetic material that doesn't exist in reality because of this ability to use the portamento of guitar and other sounds without the actual acoustic modeling needed. And there's actually no acoustic modeling in here because it seemed like it was too intensive and too unpredictable. And it also didn't produce a very good result. So all of these main guitar sounds are actual acoustic guitars or electric guitars. Okay, and so then we come to a guitar rig, and you would click Guitar Rig to enable not only this module, but also the Guitar Rig effects and the Guitar Rig delay. And the reason is because mainly through this quick prototype, I wanted to create a more organized layout. So I had to split all these little cells so that they're connected, but they're not really connected. But otherwise, it was going to be a big mess of stuff. And it already sort of looks like that, but it's a little better than it was. So you would enable this and make sure your rig depth is up pretty well. And you can mess around with adding fuzz, which is sort of between fuzz and distortion, flanger, phaser, etc. Octaver really produces cool results. And then this also produces cool results because it creates a percussive quality so that the first strike of the note really sounds like it's more like percussion the higher you go with the attack. Or if you go lower, it really sounds like a totally transformed sound. So that's why I call it the morph, because it's more than just a transient sort of shaping tool. It creates a whole different kind of sound. So the next one was some basic delay effects, and I have a couple to choose from here. And this is to get the ideas flowing and rolling with delay with this system. Okay, then we have this interactor, which is the XY between, or I guess the crossfade between the guitar and the synth element. So if you go all the way over here, you get just guitar. If you go all the way over here, you just get synth. And of course, in the middle, you get a combo. Okay, and then we have a cabinator, which is basically just several cabinets that you can XY between to create a sort of morphing cabinet sound, meaning usually guitar cabinet or even other kinds of strange sound design speakers. So as an additional bonus, I included a bass augmenter, so you could add even more bass to your lead sound, which could interfere with other bass, so I left it disabled and I put it more towards the bottom. But it also has the ability to toggle on a pseudo cabinet. Then we have the same thing where if you adjust the attack time, you get much more of a percussive quality. So that's why I went ahead and included that as a dial, because the whole point of the XRIFFz concept is its tone, its texture, and its sort of percussion, and it has melodic qualities, and we wanted to be able to kind of interplay between all these things, and that's where it sort of blurs the lines. So I added as much percussive and tonal stuff as I could think of for just lead-oriented material. So another thing to shape sort of the effect of the tone is the spectral stepper, I called it. And it's basically just stepping through a similar effect that transforms the original sounds. All of these run through these systems at this point. Like everything that you select from the source selector, if you select multiple of these, all of them flow through the stuff that's sort of beneath this. So therefore, everything's going to be processed by spectral stepper, etc. All right, and then towards the end, I have the silencer, and I wanted to create a way to gate rhythmically sound so that when you're playing all this stuff and even playing, like riffs or whatever, then you can sort of mute that either as you're playing or in post in production. So that it creates even more of a rhythmic quality. So we have 16 steps that we can mute the sound. And then I have the ability to change the rate of the muting, and then also the sort of shuffling and the triplets and the dotted through this. So the last thing I'll mention is this ADSR is on top because I wanted to, the whole point of the XRIFFz Synplex system is to create a lead sound. Because we have a lot of things we focus on with spectral design, but in this particular case, we're just trying to make a lead synthesizer, mostly leaning towards that. So that's why an ADSR at the top is really critical. And so therefore, like, no matter where you are in this thing, just go right back to the top to control all this stuff. So essentially, everything that's happening here can be controlled through this ADSR. and then we have a way to toggle the release on and off so that we can immediately stop and gate the tone as necessary. Again, once again, to create a more percussive quality in your rhythmic guitars and your lead sounds. So then we also can dial back on the attack. That's once again why it's called the morpher, because this creates a sort of different sort of approach to attacking the lead. So there's quite a bit of stuff happening here, and it's a lot of like fancy DSP to create something that's just oriented around lead sounds. All right, I'll leave it at that, or because I could ramble on and on about this. And this is I just wanted to give an overview of what's actually happening in this system.